Mr. Mithun Sacheti, co-founder and CEO of Caratlane, is a certified gemologist from the Gemological Institute of America, California, and is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore. Mr. Mithun Sacheti has translated his passion for jewelry into making Caratlane India's leading omni-channel jeweler. Coming from a family of 5 generations of jewelers, Mr. Mithun believes that jewelry should be for everyday use and not for lockers. Converting this belief into reality, he set up Caratlane, which is India's largest online diamond and diamond jewelry portal. Today, Caratlane has 30 stores across the country and a virtual try-on app, which is a step ahead in experiencing jewelry. At Caratlane, Mr. Mithun oversees business strategy and is a taskmaster for design innovation and quality of execution. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mithun Sacheti to acquaint us with his triumphant thoughts.
So, Mr. Mithun, for all of you, I truly agree with you. Jewelry should be worn every day. So we are your South Africa clients. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, IMA, for giving me this opportunity to come to Indore, a city I love and I really enjoy. I don't think there's a warmer set of people or better food that one gets than one coming to Indore as well on that. So, my conversation might resonate with some people very closely and might alienate a few people as well. I hope it makes, sorry about that. Yeah, it might alienate a few people because I have very strong views in life generally. And it might resonate with some people, and I hope it inspires a few as well, most of you who sit up there. I didn't realize that the order of the day was to wear a suit, so I apologize for not being dressed appropriately for this event, but next time I come back, I promise you I will be better dressed for this as well. This whole innovate and thinking about the future is is not something that happens very easily in the space that I operate in. Jewelry is generally taken as a more laid-back profession. You don't think about change very easily. It's a low-entry barrier business. Anybody can walk in and start building tomorrow. The number of women employed in building businesses from home is possibly greatest in design and in jewelry. It's so easy almost that for a lot of Marwari families, it's a stopgap between finishing graduation and getting married. You know, so, and I have always found that very, very fascinating as well, that how we can do this so conveniently. I want to stress upon the innovation part of it today. I grew up in a family which is a jewelry business, which has a jewelry business of its own. Post my graduation, moved to Chennai because my family is in Bombay and we have a store by the name of Jaipur Gems over there. My choices were to come and join my father in Bombay or go to Chennai and build a business. And I think making decisions, right decisions at the right time helps a lot in that. I chose to go to Chennai. It's a much harder place to live. It's a much more difficult place to build a business as well, because they're generally very, very loyal to what happens around there and what goes on over there as well. But if I stayed in Bombay, I knew that in most family businesses, the second son is basically disguised unemployed. And I would be exactly that. I would just be the third guy in the business who would work like as if it's a matinee show for 4 hours every day, and then the rest of the day I would just be hanging around this place itself. So I decided I'll go to Chennai and build a business of my own and see what happens over there. Not of my own, but run it off my own at least at that point. The first 5 years were extremely hard, trying to build that business and try and see what it is. Get a hang of how businesses operate in India, get a hang of how consumers operate in India, and do that. And at the end of the 5th year, I realized one thing. There were many things which were not going right for the long-term sustainability of the jewelry business. The reason I stress upon that is because that led to the thought process of what I wanted to do next as well. The first thing that bothered me was that as the price of gold went up, and if any of you ever tracked that, in the year 2001 when I started business, it was about 300 rupees a gram. And by the year 2006, it was around 1500 rupees a gram. When a commodity goes up 5 times, consumer spending does not keep pace with that. There is no way that people could buy the same amount of gold as they could buy before. But on the business side of it, if you see, the impact it has is that the inventory turn, or basically the amount of money we have invested in the business and the return we get on that, suffers dramatically on it. It's very nice to think that one time we got a bump up and our inventory went up in value, but the return on capital dramatically falls at that point. If this stayed paced the way it was, the concept of opening new stores or anything else would require significantly greater capital, and with a falling ROCE, it would make absolutely no sense to do that. The problem we all had in the jewelry business was that we had large showrooms, but we had only one door, which meant that the number of walk-ins would not change at all, and that would impact the kind of business we do. And most jewelry stores, you might not know this, have lesser walk-ins per year than the number of items that are actually there in all the stores put together. And this goes even for the largest stores in the country itself. So if one was to model this, and I think of every business as an equation, it would make absolutely no sense when the gold price would be like 30,000 or 40,000 or something, and with the interest cost that we have in India, it would make absolutely no sense. We're lucky that the government subsidizes it. We import and pay for gold in dollar terms still. But if it was not to be in dollar terms, this would be a serious problem. So the way I saw it, if you could increase walk-ins, and if you get more people to visit and to see your jewelry, and even if you had conversion at a lower level, you would make a larger impact to the business than having lesser walk-ins and higher conversions in the business. At that point, the internet was just coming about, and you know, we were early stages trying to figure out what's going to happen with it. My brother, in the year 2000, along with my uncle here, Mr. Vinay, had tried building a business, but they were a little ahead of their time on that. But we learned a lot from that whole thing. And it was always in my mind as to how can we use the power of internet to help people discover more and create a larger demand for what we do and bring them all together in one place. So we thought about it, and we thought we'll build a model around having no inventory literally, but creating extraordinary visibility on the internet and try and see what happens with it. This is significantly before, you know, the advent of Flipkart and everything else also. So it was very nascent and very early for us to think about and try and build that business out. So in the year 2007, I embarked on this, and I built a company in the name of Caratlane, or Caratlane.com as it's known. And then I decided that if I could power and aggregate one portion of the jewelry business, which most people would find easy to buy based on specification, not based on touch and feel, then maybe that could be the starting point of this business itself. So I went after the solitaire part of the business, because that's one area which based on, you know, a lot of the solitaires are sold by specification. If any of you, I mean, most of you would have bought it, then you would know that specification drives the way that business operates as well. So we built an ERP and went across to lots of small manufacturers around Surat, Navsari, Gujarat, where this trade happens. And we offered all of them a product. We said, we'll give you an ERP for free. All we want is the listing rights of all the diamonds that you want to sell as well on the online business, to consumers only. We don't care about the B2B side. You can do what you want. You could use our ERP for free, and we would just want online listing rights of this. So obviously it made a lot of sense to them, because they were not paying for an ERP which was very, very robust and would solve a lot of their problems as well. And the consumer side of the business was too early for them, and they didn't think that anybody would buy solitaires online as well. As smart as they are, they were right. There was nobody ready to buy a product in the first couple of years over there, but we were happy that we got this listing together. We knew ourselves that we're not going to be able to sell in year 1 or year 2, but what we did was we built an aggregation. An aggregation is basically is no different from the way you see travel business, the way it's organized today. Behind every Clear Trip and Make My Trip is an aggregator, which is either Galileo or Amadeus. They aggregate all the inventory of all the airlines, and they sell it to through the OTAs, which is Clear Trip, Make My Trip, Go Ibibo, etc. on that. So we decided we'll play the role of the aggregator in the diamond business, and we built this pipe at the back. Now the problem we had was that every jeweler we went to would try and want to deal in cash or want to work in a manner which would not be conducive for us to build a large-scale business itself. But we realized that there was still, I mean, India was changing and lots of things were happening as well, and there was always a possibility that there will be 1 or 2 guys who will want to build big brands and build a business out of this as well. So by chance it happened that by chasing Tanishq about 100 times, we finally got a meeting with them. And we proved it to them that for the 12 crore business that they do on solitaires at that point, they were extremely inefficient on that. And they had actually given up on the solitaire category, saying that they just don't know how to run this piece. So we took this aggregation and built a model and built a system in each one of their stores and said that don't own any inventory. We'll put a model in all of your stores. We will train every single person who works in your stores and tell them that you can sell a solitaire based on specification without actually having inventory in your store as well. You would have access to about 50,000 solitaires at any given point, and the trust is already there with the consumer to order things in your store, so you should be able to use this trust and work with it as well. They were hesitant. It took about 6 months to convince them, but they said, okay, you know, one good thing about companies that live in hope is that they give a trial. So they gave us 12 stores and said, try it out over here. If it makes sense for a year, we'll go ahead with it. For us, as a company, this B2B trial was going to establish whether it works on the consumer side of the business or not. Because if we could establish this behavior for them, we could definitely establish it for ourselves to take it to the consumer as well. So we took it across to these 12 stores, trained everybody in it, and decided that let's give it a best shot and see what happens. The 12 crore business that they were doing from 150 stores, in about 6 months, they were doing 12 crores from these 12 stores itself. They did not have to think anymore. And then with scale, they gave us 100 stores and roll out this entire business itself. We were very focused. We told them at some point we are going to be a consumer business. And the cash that we were generating for this, we kept reinvesting back into the consumer side of the business. So we kept creating a consumer brand in the name of Caratlane from the cash that we generated from this, because we didn't have that much money. I started this business against the will and wishes of my family. My father was very clear that I had a stop loss at 1 crore, and then, you know, if it didn't work out, then it didn't work out. I should go home after that and get back into the family business. So this money kept the business going. We kept on with this as well. And the 12 stores went to 100 stores. That fueled this business back as well. At some point, we've learned exactly how the consumer behavior operates. We knew what makes him buy in a store. We knew which part of India buys what. We knew which cities will be the early adopters to this whole thing, and how the game will play out when it becomes scale itself. So we took this and went across to various VCs across India, venture capitalists across India. About a year of going to each one of these guys and trying to figure out, you know, is there a way you can fund us? Because now I needed money. There is no way my father was putting any more money back in this business as well. The conversation around jewelry becoming into e-commerce was relatively difficult to have with venture capitalists, because they were still establishing the Flipkarts and even Myntra was early at that point. So I spent a year trying to figure it out, but then came a wave, the internet wave in India, where every business literally was looked at with hope. You know, all of the cynicism that the Indian VCs were looking at went out of the window, and we got this clutch of American VCs who looked at saying, We did all this in America, let's try and build this in India as well. They came back with this whole vigor, and 1 year of meeting these guys and not getting anything, and one meeting, I got a LinkedIn request one day from a firm called Tiger Global, which is now very famous for its investments, Ola and Flipkart and many more. I got a LinkedIn request one day saying that coming to India, we're an $18 billion fund, would love to see what you're building and try and understand that. So as a LinkedIn request, you don't take it very seriously, and this is the part where luck plays a very, very important role in life as well. So I had this friend, Sachin, who built Flipkart, and I asked him, I heard about these guys, what do you think? He said, I don't know, I'm also going to meet him, we'll see. So since he hadn't heard anything, I decided I'm not going to go for this meeting. It's like 20,000 rupees to go to Delhi and come back. It's not worth spending that kind of money to go meet a guy. And I'd done like 50 VC meetings and felt that this doesn't take me anywhere. So Sachin went, he got a $10 million check and he came back home. I couldn't believe it that I possibly blew up the single largest opportunity that came my way as well on this. But I got a call the next day again from this gentleman, Lee Fixel. And he says that I would like to meet you, I'm here for another couple of days. And Sachin says, it's for real, go and meet him. I go to Delhi. I expect to see a senior gentleman. Turns out he's 4 years younger than me. And I have this conversation, and he knows more about my business than I could ever know about it, or rather equal amounts of what I knew about my business. But he could see what would happen 4 years ahead of the way this market would play out based on the experiences they had in China and America and everywhere else. And that conversation, which is a 2-hour conversation, at the end of it, he asked me, so I like what you do and I like this space, and obviously they'd done their homework and come with this, and he says, I would like to give you a $5 million check and see what you can build with this as well. So I was obviously taken aback. Nobody offers $5 million. You're asking for $500,000 for the last 1 year. I wasn't getting it, and somebody's offering me $5 million, and I couldn't understand. But being a Marwadi that I am, I said, I think I'll need $6 million to build this business. So he laughed. He's a Jew himself, but he gave me the $6 million. And then the story went on from there, and we started building. Because you can't build a consumer business, you can't change a habit without money. It's a waste of time to try and even attempt it as well. Because habit-changing businesses cost significant amount of money, and that's a lot that we don't understand about what Ola did and what Flipkart did and what Paytm is doing right now as well also. We think, oh my God, how can they have these kind of losses? But they have made colossal inroads into our habit. We will never realize this till maybe 5 years down the road when we see that, it's so easy for us nowadays. We don't even think twice before doing a price check. We don't even think before taking an Uber as well. And all of this habit-changing behavior that happens as well. And in that context, even 6 million was very, very small. But it was still some start. And we started to go on with it. And we started seeing success one after the other. But one learning that I had every single time. So the business went on from like 5 million in revenue to maybe 10 million in revenue. But when we reached 10 million in revenue, we realized the guys who bought the 0 to 10 million are not the same guys who are going to take us from 10 million to 20 million. And about 2013, we decided we need to open a place where consumer can try on the product if he wants to. It might not be something, we might keep samples of the product, we might do anything else, but he just needs that touch and feel, and he needs to figure out where we are with it as well. We went after that, we made that attempt. The first couple of attempts were disasters. I mean, we built the first trial place we opened was a complete tech place. It looked like a digital room of Microsoft rather than looking like a jewelry business or a jewelry store at all, because it had touch screen, it had virtual try-on, it had everything. But the easy part of it, which we knew at the back, was jewelry, is something we completely forgot. We didn't put any jewelry in the store at all, and we expected the consumer to come there to do trials. We were just trying to promote a habit, and it sounds as stupid as it is today, but those were the mistakes that we made, and expensive mistakes at that point as well. But perseverance helps a lot in that. We changed our habit, we went back and built another store in the mall, and we decided that we're going to have 500 square feet in a high footfall area and try and figure out what happens when we put samples of our jewelry over there. So my catalog might be 7,000 pieces, but let me put 500 and see what happens. the internet allows you to create serious pent-up demand. That concept is alien to the retail business. In retail, our single largest problem was that an average consumer buys once in 1.5 years. And the walk-ins are like once a year is that you get a walk-in from the same customer as well, if you take an average on that. On the digital side of it, a consumer browses once a month. So if you could convert this browsing behavior into transactional behavior, even a fraction of it, you would have made a change in the way the category operates itself. Because 12 visits converting 10% of the time, as opposed to converting 100% of the time in a retail behavior, it still gives you more return on equity as well. That's the mathematical model that we realized in 2013 we need to solve. We went and built our first 13 stores. We grew. I think we grew like 70% that year. And we realized that, this is the model we got to change. We didn't know the word was omni back then. We just knew there were stores and they were online. And, the newspapers teach you very soon that that model is going to be called omni as time goes by on it as well. We grew ourselves to a reasonable size, but we again realized that now, if you have to go beyond the metros in India, trust becomes a very, very, very important part. And it's not easy to get trust. All the money in the world cannot buy you trust in a hurry. And there are enough companies around us which are very, very large, and we've seen that doesn't happen so easily. And we realized we need a new partner. We need a partner with who we could work with, and trust would come naturally as such into that business. It was core to what Caratlane was trying to do. If I had to change a habit, trust was going to be a very significant part in changing that habit as well. And I can change consumer appetite by pushing more money after him, but I didn't have the money that Ola has or Uber has or Flipkart has, and frankly, my category was not large enough to get that money. So how do I get the trust? And the one word that, from our origin days we remembered was like the guys who really have trust is Tanishq. And Tatas are possibly the best partners that one could get to go after. So we started a journey trying to chase them and say that, this category will change and this model will redefine the return on capital that you get at scale. So the conversations with them went on for a long time and we're describing scale. One thing I was never willing to compromise on was that I'll never give up the brand. The brand must always stay Caratlane, and that stays a sticking point in them, because they wouldn't mind nobody would mind buying a digital business when they're size, but they'll buy it for the capability and want to deploy it on their own brand. But that was never the vision that we had. Our aim was digital India needed a different brand altogether. We were going to be true to our customer. Our customer was the one who was going to browse on the internet first. Our aspirations were that the browsing behavior of 10 times a year browsing does not change, is different, because the customer is different. We are never going to compromise on the kind of customer we are going after. We heard Professor speak earlier that almost 70% of India is going to be below 30 or 35, some number like that. And if that's going to happen and if that has to play out, then all these people are going to be digital anyways. So we are playing for the future audience rather than playing for today's audience. And that was a single biggest sticking point that we had in the whole conversation, that how do you stick out to this kind of conversation? Twice in the board meeting over there, I had a difficult time trying to convince them because their aim was take the digital piece, 100 crore business is not a big deal, whatever, it'll do what it does, but our 10,000 crore business can benefit tremendously from all the skill sets that we acquire on this. So it would sound more like an acqui-hire rather than helping the brand Caratlane become something significant out of that. A year later, we again grew 50% and we were about 150 crores. I was back in that boardroom, trying to have that conversation again and trying to say, look, this is the next big thing that's going to happen in the jewelry business. You're going to build a brand for a different set of audience, which is different from who you transact with. And we had to present a lot of data and put it forward as well. But I must say that one really nice thing about people who have a vision or people who build things for posterity is that they look at things with hope as well. I was earlier in the day having that conversation also. And the Tatas have that ability that they build things for posterity, I guess because there's a retirement age and somebody else also has to take over. But they think like that. Family businesses don't tend to think like that. And they gave us that shot. And we got the opportunity to once again present with a blueprint saying that what will Caratlane become in 5 years, and what would it become in 10 years, and how would it not add to the conflict, and what kind of consumer will it do and everything. That opportunity gave us a clarity of what we are trying to build as well. And I don't think we would have had that clarity had those questions not being asked of us as well. At every stage of, or every point of inflection, and I felt in the early days it was every 50 crores, now it's every 200 crores, that there's a point later on it'll be every 500 crores. There's a point of inflection at which the set of consumers you interact with and the way you interact with changes now very rapidly. And that's very peculiar of habit-forming businesses. The first set of 50 crores, or rather the first set of 1 lakh customers we got were early adopters. They had a different behavior, they were risk takers, they could take something went wrong, they would have a little more patience with us. The next set of guys that we went after had a little lesser risk appetite. We had to change our tact and our strategy according to that and work with it, saying that, no, I'm going to go after this in a different model. The next set that now we go after, and that's why we decided that, Tatas would be the best partners for us at that time, will require significantly more amount of trust than what was required for the early adopters in itself. That change in behavior has to be understood when you're building a habit-forming or a habit-changing business in itself. When I ran my retail business, it was never like that. You could build as much revenue as you could create from your store. Request for, 5 minutes. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, so your retail behavior doesn't have that change requirement. You don't need to innovate. You don't need to think differently. You can keep getting the same set of customers because over 100 years that business is established, or hundreds of years it's been established. You don't need to, all you need to convince the customers you have the right product and I'm not going anywhere. That's it. But when you think about the internet business, or you want the power and the success of the internet business, you have to start thinking about, you're going to get a whole new set of people buying from you now who were not used to buying anything on the internet. And we have a farm out there. Every person who's bought on fashion we know is now ready to buy jewelry as well. So we just go to that farm and try and figure out how we're going to get next set of people from there itself also. I do believe that people get it wrong when they don't get this fundamental right. Recently, I did a study about 10 fashion businesses which, after reaching 150 crores in revenue and raising between 100 to 300 crores, have collapsed. You fundamentally got to realize that the first 150 crores is the kind of business that will not take you to the next 1,000 crores. It's a whole different audience after that. And if you don't solve for that audience, the math equation is broken over there. 3 plus 3 is equal to 6, but 3 plus 3 plus 3 will be 9, but you need to find 3 multiplied by 2 to make it 6 in this as well. So that's it's an exponential business, and exponential things happen only when you can change the habit in itself also. I got lucky in 2016, finally I could convince Titan. It was the right thing to do by the business. It was not the right thing to do by myself or by the shareholders as such. But one very important advice that I got at that point, and I say this to every single person who sits up there, is that a fund or an investor has about 10 lives. A fund has 10 lives. An entrepreneur has about 3 lives. But a business has only 1 life. If you do right by the business, it will take care of the entrepreneur and the fund in itself at all times. And that, I don't know why, but that stuck with me for very, very strong. I mean, it was always something that I lived by and something I believed in. And working, and to give away majority control to a group and then have to build that was not something I grew up with or not something I knew very well as well. Of course, in hindsight, it doesn't even matter now. But at that point was the hardest decision to make. But if I had to put the destiny of Caratlane in front of me and I say that what's the right thing to do by that business, and what's the right way to innovate so that we could get this audience to buy from us online all throughout or build this omni behavior, I don't think we would have been able to do that had we not added that Tata name or Tanishq name to our brand. Today it's called Caratlane, a Tanishq partnership. That's what it's become eventually. And from 7 years, which it took us to reach 150 crores, In the next 1 year, it added another 150 crores to itself in the business. And that's the habit-changing partnership one needs to figure out how to do. As times go by, collaboration is going to become that much more important. And we need to figure out for that category and for that business, what's the right collaboration to do. It's not going to happen just by throwing money or throwing ideas at people. That might sustain for a bit, but every business has a different take on it itself also. We need to figure out what's the right take for our business. For my business, changing trust was the most important thing. And there are a few more that will change as time goes by into it. As we look into the future, getting faster at what we do, getting more focused on the kind of product we do, getting consumers to try in their homes now will become the next big thing for us itself also. We're going to keep finding new ways and keep talking to our customers to try and figure out how are we going to grow from this to the next and to the next set of consumers as well. And I hope that everybody figures out for their own and respective business or their respective ideas, what is that habit-changing behavior that you're going to focus on, and what is that change that you're going to look for in your consumers, so that you don't let your business after 150 crores fall apart, but you find the next way for that business to sustain, and in return, it'll take care of you as well. Thank you.